What's up, everybody? Welcome to TeslaFix. My name is Jan. Today we are looking at the news that BYD is going to build a factory in Hungary, actually, in Europe. And that's pretty interesting because Tesla, of course, has their Giga Berlin. Now we have another Chinese competitor in the European market. And we're going to look at how this is going to pressure, especially the German market, because we have those big players in Germany, in Europe, and also with BYD having such a big booth at the IAA in Munich. I think this pretty much hit the spot for the German car manufacturers. So let's start the episode.
Welcome to TeslaFix. Make sure to subscribe and like this episode.
So hi, Alex, again. Thanks for joining me on this episode. Of course, we as Europeans and Germans witnessing and looking at the IAA that was happening there, you could really see in the news cycle, in the German news cycle especially, that, oh my God, BYD is suddenly on the map. Like never seen before. The Chinese were very dominant in the Munich Auto Show that was live recently and where you also visited, of course. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this develops, and also with the announcement with BYD having a factory. Yeah, I needed to have you as a guest again, of course. So maybe you can tell the audience what you do and what you think about this topic.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Great to be here. Great honor and a great channel. So always good. You had good, interview partners lately. So that's fantastic. Yeah, BYD is obviously big in the media, or simply because they are selling big in China. And BYD is not a pure BEV company. So they're coming out of ICE too, which a lot of people, I think, don't really realize. And you have to look twice if you look at statistics, because usually hybrids and PHEVs are included into their BEV business, which is, by the way, why I always say BEV and not EV, because in particular in Europe and in Germany, the term EV is very often used also for hybrids and PHEVs, which is blurring the picture. And I think that a hybrid is still an ICE vehicle because it has a pipe and it has an ICE engine in there. So therefore, it's not a pure battery electric vehicle for me. So just as a side note. And yes, as you said, I've been at the IAA, the International Auto Show here in Munich this year. And I've been quite impressed about all the Chinese automakers showing up, in particular BYD with a booth right opposite the street from VW. And they've been, in terms of, I didn't count the models, but I think they've been at least as big as VW, which was probably a little bit of a surprise for a lot of visitors. If you look at the cars, and auto shows are more like, you sit in there, how does it feel? How big is the screen? What kind of colors do they have? Do I like the chassis and the design and you name it? Which is actually also a reason why I don't usually go to auto shows, because you can't see software on an IAA. You can drive it here and there a little bit, but you just don't get the impression that is needed, I believe, to decide for the right car.
You need a real-life test, actually, to really see what's going on, yeah.
So, but what we have is we have a huge expectation in Europe that a lot of Asian automakers will come and succeed in Europe. Right now, the numbers are astonishing small still. I'm surprised myself. I would have expected more interest from the consumers in Europe to buy cars from BYD. I've seen them on the roads since the last year, bumping into BYD vehicles. I looked at it and I had to say, they're looking good. I mean, it's not about if I like them or not. It's more about the build quality and how they are designed. Could be a European car maker, no doubt. So therefore, pretty similar. And we know in China that the price points are lower, but obviously in Europe, pricing is higher. Maybe also logistics costs, but other things play into it. And as you said, there is a plan from BYD to build up a factory in Hungary. I'm not sure if that is finally confirmed yet from BYD. I don't think so. But it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, BYD is searching for a place to produce vehicles in Europe. And it obviously depends very much on the demand they are going to have. But let's face it, there's Tesla out here, and this is a specific design and not everybody's taste for a variety of reasons. So people are saying, I don't have USS and therefore I can't park very well, therefore I'm not buying a Model Y or Model 3. Others people are saying I need stalks, I can't drive a car without stalks, it doesn't work for me, and they are therefore not buying. Other people are just hooked up to the FAT around autopilot and other things, and so they are not buying. So there will be consumers who are not buying Teslas, and that's totally fine. And we know that the software is really bad from the German automakers, and I also include the French automakers here and there. And then you just have a big hole, a gap. And the question is, who's coming to fulfill that gap? And BYD could be one option, not only the only one. There are other companies out there too. I believe BYD still need to prove that they can repeat the success stories they have in China. So the Chinese market is different. We all know that. The requirements are different, consumers are different, and BYD has for a long time a very good name in China, but they are not really very much known in Europe, and the same is probably true in the US. So therefore they need to prove themselves. I haven't seen it yet in terms of registration numbers. And, just look at NIO, right? So everybody thought NIO was going to win the market here, hands down, because they have good-looking cars and it's high-tech, what they do, and they're going to compete with Tesla. If you look at the numbers, it's pretty disappointing. So it's not a lot happening here, and they are in trouble now. But BYD is in a different position. So we will see. It's I think it's needed, Obviously, I'm a Tesla fan. But we need to have other BEV companies being successful with their cars. There's no doubt about that. Nobody wants just Teslas out there. In a world like US, where partly 2/3 of all BEVs or even vehicles sold are Teslas, this is crazy. I mean, this is not going to happen in Europe. And we need more diversity. We need better software from these companies. And that will create more momentum, because what we have right now is that Tesla and maybe BYD in China, and I say this specifically in China, is successful, but all the others are not. And that's why the media and the automakers all of a sudden come up with this misleading claim, this FAT claim for like, well, consumers don't like really battery electric vehicles that much. It was just the tech-savvy guys who've been buying up front, but this wave is now over, and the ordinary consumer is not going into a battery electric vehicle very soon, so everything is going slower. That's nonsense. That's total bullshit. Everybody who's driving a good battery electric vehicle will never ever go back to an ICE vehicle. So therefore, it's just a question of time that these guys are really catching up with software. And we also see, and this is interesting, that VW is partnering with XPeng, Audi is partnering with SAIC, Mercedes with Geely and others, just to try to bring good vehicles on the market. My read is here that the technologies that creates most of the value is moving into Asian and US hands. Because Tesla will also license. They will license full self-driving later on. They already opened up the supercharger, and so that is also helping legacy automakers to sell vehicles. But what's happening here is that the value creation, and with that the profit, is moving outside of the legacy automakers. And I think this trend will accelerate and continue. And that creates a situation that we're still going to have the brands out here that we all know from our childhood. The brands are not going to disappear, but they are not really the ones who are making the money with their own cars. That's how I see it in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned also that because it's a Chinese company, so looking at the Chinese manufacturing processes, how the Chinese are doing this, and also we have a great tweet about that I also retweeted, which I found very interesting, is that here where Tao Lin's interview was published, she talked about what China or Tesla China actually provided in the whole value chain of Tesla, and the list goes totally on. It's pretty interesting. Here, for example, number one is many of the improvements to the upgraded Model 3 come from the R&D center in China. That's very important. For example, ventilation sheets, new interior materials, quietness, ambient light were developed by the Shanghai R&D Innovation Center. Tesla established the Gigafactory data center to achieve localization of data storage, which is totally important for the Chinese market, of course. Yeah. And all in-vehicle generated data sold in China will be stored in China, which is especially important for FSD in China because of the sensitive, the politics are very sensitive to, or the politicians are very sensitive to the China to the data gathering in China. And also number 4, I'm going to read it through. I think currently a car can come off the production line in about 30 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. And automation in the welding workshop is now close to 100%. This is also absolutely insane. Every thing that mentioned here is super insane from the manufacturing side. And this will also have a ripple effect on the other, of course, on the other factories Tesla is operating in. Give them 5 years and they're going to have this kind of standard. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, ask yourself why the VP manufacturing is from China within Tesla, right? So it makes a lot of sense because the success he can prove is just impressive. Being a production engineer, I look a little bit at these numbers, and first of all, 30 seconds is probably just at the normal full production when everything works seamlessly, which is not the reality we are living in. But other automakers are also providing these numbers under full production and no bottlenecks, and then it's very, very impressive. There's no doubt. The same with full automation here and there, but nevertheless, this list is really impressive and shows the difference Giga Shanghai and the team makes not only for autos but also for mega packs, and also, by the way, superchargers are also coming out of China. So it's an amazing success story. And it shows what localization can bring. I hope that this will also happen in Europe to that extent. Yeah. You remember that there was the notion of building up an R&D center in Europe too. We will see whether this will happen. I think Tesla pedaled back and just gave a few billions in incentives back to the EU because they've said, we don't just need that and the requirements are okay. We could cope with that, but we decided we don't. So it shows the strength of Tesla, right? So they just don't want anybody to meddle in their business and to influence what they do.
Yeah, I want to add something here because I find it very interesting or important for the viewer who are more from the US on my channel, that they realize what's happening here. Because when you take those European incentives, you also kind of give up some rights, more or less. You have to report to the governments, and and it's crazy how this will unfold. That when you have those incentives, you're actually kind of restricted in your general. They want to have more and more say and insight into your business and oversight. And and someday they can pull back the incentives as well, and you have to give stuff back, and it's pretty dangerous gamble sometimes. But it can make sense. Sometimes it doesn't. But I'm also very glad that Tesla didn't get their handcuffs onto their hands. Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
No, that's fine. They're trying to continue to be pretty independent, while and you mentioned that. Other automakers are trying to get as much incentives as possible. VW building the battery factory in Canada, which is almost totally paid by Canada now. So it's billions and billions that they've been asking for. VW, although they've got incentives canceling their battery factory in Czech, I think it was, or postponing for I don't know when. And the same is happening with the factory in the Trinity factory that VW was intending to build in Wolfsburg. So, and that's why I'm saying, every new factory enables you to build a new layout and a more efficient production line to come up closer to the 30 seconds. I mean, let's face it, they are miles away from what Tesla is doing here. And without new factories...
I just wanted to ask, is it really 30 seconds, or did he meant maybe 30 minutes or something? Because I think the 30 seconds...
No, that's seconds. That's seconds.
Really?
I remember when they've been at 45. So they've been improving. Damn. They've been improving by 30% in the last year or so. So that is seconds.
Years ago, even the Model 3 production was 3 times faster than VW's ID3 production.
That's a 10-hour thing, which is, you always need to ask how this is calculated. I do not know the details, but this sounds more like throughput time to me. And you need to ask, okay, when does it start? Probably at the press where, and they add all of this together, and also the time when the parts are not moving in the factory. And then they calculate numbers, but again, I mean, it's not like every time of the day you can walk into the factory and you see a car moving out of the door in 30 seconds. This is just not it. But under perfect conditions, they probably are able in certain time frames to do the 30 seconds.
Yeah, it makes sense. So now I get it, because I was confused. The 30 seconds is the last step when the vehicle is off the line. How many cars come off the line after one every?
They're leaving the factory. So you stand there with the watch, and you 30 seconds the next car is rolling out.
Okay. How they roll out, of course. How they spit it out. Okay.
Yeah,
that makes much more sense than I thought. Yeah.
And she also said, for instance, the VP, that the 30 seconds is one thing, but she also said that the casting was reducing the production time from 3 to 5 hours to, I think, 1 to 3 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes exactly. Here it is. Yeah. I'm going to pull it up again.
That's another thing which as a critical engineer you have to question. So what she's probably referring to is the giga press process. So you have the furnace where the metal is melted, and then it's injected in the mold with high pressure, and then the pieces coming out usually always from a robot taking out the hot piece. Still, this is this minutes she talks to, but there's obviously a lot of other time associated with that, and I'm not talking even about maintenance or repair or tooling, which she didn't include here. But that's fine. I mean, this is a little bit marketing, and it's a step change. Let's not forget, VW canceled the gigacasting approach. Other automakers are embracing it. And this shows us actually what profound difference Tesla made in manufacturing processes around the globe in terms of initiating that what everybody called before is impossible. They ridiculed it, and now they are copying it. So and the same is happening with other processes too. The point here is Tesla is not stopping. They are continuing, and they are even more eager to make more crazy things. Yeah. And we see this with stainless steel. We are going to see this with the unbox process. And everybody who's telling me, like Toyota, oh, no problem, we are going to copy that, and that's easy. I don't believe them. Show me the proof.
Also Polestar, show me the proof. Yeah, it will take some time. But Alex, for the end of the episode, I kind of want to ask you maybe again to put it now into the whole picture, because BYD setting up shop in Europe also pressures the legacy car manufacturers in Germany, in Europe, also France, of course. How do you view that unfolding? Because we know kind of the trends are showing that in the EV production, BYD seems to be a close second, when maybe they can even some years overtake Tesla in production numbers. But how do you view that now, more focused on the German car manufacturers for the end?
So if they are able and willing to invest and to innovate here in Europe from a European perspective, then I believe they have a really good chance to succeed, in particular if they produce in Europe. Hungary is an interesting pick because it's not really what I call a democratic country, to be honest. And they're coming from China, going to Hungary, so interesting. But in the Eastern Europe part, and apologies as a German, I'm calling Eastern countries like Czech and Hungary Eastern, not Central. They have an often different point of view, which I understand. These countries have a lot of supply base in the automotive industry because a lot of German suppliers went into these countries after '89, after the '90s, and the last, in the last generation. A lot of friends of mine have been working in these countries as automotive managers, and so there is supply base. So Hungary is probably not a bad pick from that perspective. If they are working on vehicle safety, and I heard they've been improving on that. If they are, adjusting to the requirements and needs of Europeans, I think they have a good chance. But also we have to understand that obviously it's not a low-cost country necessarily like China or other Asian countries. So cost base is going to be higher.
Where the production cost is also very low. I have to add that as well, even lower than China in some cases.
Right. So they are playing a little bit more in the same chord than all of a sudden. They are not like totally different. You're right. I mean, they have more experience. They've been developing good looking and obviously good working battery electric vehicles with at a profit, which I believe is a good thing.
Big thing,
I think they are at a profit as far as I know. Have they disclosed profit numbers for battery electric?
I'm not sure, but like a year ago, around that ballpark, they made minus $1,000 or $2,000. Now maybe it jumped back on, but back up, but. Of course, Tesla is the king in pricing now because they have this huge margins. BYD isn't at the place that Tesla is right now, but that's just more or less speculation based on the accurate data I'm now having. So I'm not really sure, but
But credit where credit is due. BYD has been increasing battery electric vehicle output impressively. I mean, they've been almost at the rate of Tesla in the last quarter. And I congratulate them for that, which is fantastic. So I don't have anything against it. In terms of break even, they probably have a little minor profit or a little bit more, but it won't be comparable with that what Tesla has, simply because of the different approach and different technology. When BYD is coming to Europe, they have to prove that they can produce on low costs here in Europe, in that regulation and in this environment. If BYD is able to really succeed in Europe with a good design and adjusting to the requirements and needs here from the Europeans, I think there's an open field which is huge, simply because I don't see, VW Group and others are filling it right now. And therefore, it's a unique opportunity. But we've seen decades ago, Asian automakers failing to use this opportunity. So this time it's new. We will see. I think BYD is kind of in a pole position to manage that. I don't think they compete against Tesla or anybody else. They are just filling a gap that's out there. And
that's not filled by the German or European legacy auto companies, I have to say that, or Toyota even,
Not at all. And as I said, a lot of people want to have stocks, and I don't think that Tesla will ever have stocks. And being someone who's driving a car without stocks, I'm the opposite. I'm saying I don't need stocks. I don't want to have a car with stocks in my life anymore. It's done. That's
it's
I'm
just
over
an
that.
adjusting phase. I know when people come from stocks and from more traditional cars, it's sometimes difficult for them to go around. Then you have different brands. I mean, also, I think it's important to highlight here on this point as well that me personally, and I would assume you too, we're not for Tesla being like totally dominating everything, and we don't have actually any competition. It's not healthy for any market to have a monopoly or a company that has a huge monopoly. So I think it's a good thing that we have actually competition, and I'm just kind of a little bit sad that it's not the German auto manufacturers. And of course, we always judge the German automotive companies pretty harshly, but because we also read the news in Germany, and that makes us a little bit more, against this narrative that they try to paint just to look good in front of the lawmakers and their lobby groups. They're
absolutely.
catering to.
Just an example: BMW. I think this was the head of production or R&D who lately said a few days ago that they are ahead with the 4.6 battery format, and Tesla needs to catch up. They don't see any gap. And my response is because they don't see a gap because they are so far behind. And then they say, well, we have 30% cost reduction, and that is happening here in the pilot plant, and yada, yada, yada. So the arrogance...
Scale that up. The Model Y, sorry to interrupt, but the Model Y was already tested in the field with 4680s.
Yeah,
that's a totally different bulb. Yeah.
So as you said, so why I'm here, why we are talking here, why I'm doing this since many years, investing my time. I could do something else, which probably also nice. I'm doing this because it drove me crazy and still drives me crazy. If I read something like that from BMW and other German OEMs and ask myself, if these managers are totally nuts. I mean, are they, they are totally detached from a reality. Even if they have a battery that is in terms of energy density, which he mentioned particularly, better than the 4680 from Tesla, where is the mass production? Where is the mass usage in the vehicles? I don't see it, And yes, they are trying to build up a factory. It's all fine, but it takes years to get the yield up and the production to the scale you need it. So don't pretend that you are ahead here with anything. And the same is true with Mercedes-Benz, claiming they are leading in autonomy and they have the longest range, while Elon is saying rightfully, who cares? I mean, who cares about 800 kilometers or 1,000 kilometers range? I don't. And the same is true for me. I don't drive 1,000 kilometers with my car, and I don't want to. So everybody
is talking about efficiencies. I mean, come on, Mercedes. The weight of your cars. I mean, that's a total different story.
So
crazy.
All my efforts has been and are still to help these guys to wake up. And because I compare them all the time with Tesla, people believe I'm a Tesla fanboy and I'm a customer and I love my car. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see Germany falling, down the cliff in terms of we are unable to pay the pensions anymore. There's a ton of debt that is coming in the future because the value creation is not existing in Germany anymore, simply because the biggest industries are automotive industry, and then we have the machining industry that you can add to that, and this is a huge portion of the BPI that is created here in Germany, and I don't see that it will be that big anymore in the future. Luckily, we have Tesla, which actually represents 13% of the GDP that has been driven in Brandenburg, where Tesla is located. So people should think about it when they criticize Tesla. Tesla has been, crown jewel indeed for Brandenburg, just in terms of salaries, in terms of employment, and in terms of taxes they pay. It's fantastic. And the growth, because why I'm saying that? Because it's not just about Tesla. Around Tesla, there's a huge ecosystem of companies who've been settling around there, making Brandenburg, which was a state in Germany. Everybody was saying, well, there's not a lot going on in Brandenburg, really. You can make holidays there, but that's it. And this is not changing totally. This is coming as a center of gravity for battery electric vehicles, battery production, and the entire supply chain. And this is only happening. and I'm underlying it, it's only happening because Tesla was building Giga Berlin there. And everybody is claiming something different is just detached from reality. So as you can tell, it drives me crazy. I still don't see the automotive industry changing. And the people who really got it, like Herbert Diess, as much as I criticized him, have been fired because they've been telling the truth. So it's nuts. And again, I mean, think about it. We are in the year 2023. When was Tesla founded? 08 or something, or before that?
Something even earlier, I think. But really, when they start, like 08 was the year where they really went.
And we are still here discussing that automotive managers in Germany claiming they are ahead of Tesla. You know,
I would date it back for the first master plan, where the plans were laid out. They were followed through. You can clearly see that. And now some German OEMs think, oh, the master plan part 1 seems like it has interesting points, or I don't know what's happening, and they are way too late to the party. So yeah, let's see how it unfolds, Alex. So thank you again very much, Alex, for being on this show. I'm glad that you were on again. I mean, the German perspective here is pretty important, especially with BYD here settling near our home turf, you could say. And it's interesting. We're gonna view this close by, especially you, and I will retweet a lot of your stuff. So please, everybody, follow Alex on X as well. And check him out. I think you got very valuable information on the German market. And thanks again for being on. And there's only one last thing to say, and that's goodbye, everybody.
Wasn't this episode awesome? Let's accelerate the pace of innovation by subscribing to TeslaFix. It is my absolute favorite channel on the whole interwebs.